Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today is World Mental Health Day. Yes, that's what it is. And I have two guests with me, people who have been in the Quip Corner's book corner previously. You'll see their bio right after this. And please join us in the Quip Corner for the full conversation. See you in a bit. Welcome back. I'm glad to be able to say welcome back, to both you, Ava, and Brett. Thanks for joining me in the Quip Corner again.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me again.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
So the purpose of our get together today is because of World Mental Health Awareness Day, October 10th. And when I was doing a bit of research, I found that the World Federation for Mental Health. Yes, I need to read that so I read it right. The president, Dr. Ingrid Daniels, announced the theme for this year's World Mental Health Day as mental health in an unequal world. And so I found that interesting because in my first book, I have a quip that talks about equality and equity. And it's quip 78. And I'll read it and then, I'd like to hear your thoughts. So my quip says, equality is important, but equity is more valuable. We're each unique and should be treated equitably, not equally. So as I use that as the backdrop to talk about mental health in an unequal world. Based on your direct experience or indirect experience, what are your thoughts on mental health and how we can manage it in an unequal world?
I guess I can start off and talk about equity, like the difference between like you said, equity and just like equality, because equity means that everyone gets what they need and everyone doesn't need the same thing. So as a school social worker, I used to work with younger children a lot. And a way that we would explain it to them was that like some kids wear glasses because they need to wear glasses, right? And, it's the fair thing wouldn't be that everybody wear glasses just because one kid is wearing glasses. Only the kid that needs to wear glasses gets to wear glasses, right? And if you try to put them on, you're actually not going to be able to see because they're not made for you. So equality is everyone getting what they need. And if you don't need it, then you don't get it. But you do get what you need. And the same is true for our mental health, because we can just look at some of the mental health numbers and see that African-American and Latino people and just people of color in general don't get treated at the same rate, even though we're dealing with some of the same numbers. So.
Well, we could spend 3 hours in this conversation today. But yeah, it's interesting for me. So everything you said, I fully agree with. And we could spend all day looking at mental health from an Indigenous standpoint. It's funny, as someone who speaks in churches, I get a chance to go to different churches. Like I'll be in a Filipino church, and then I'll be in an African church. Like there's all these different churches, very different culturally. And I hear in almost all of them the comment that, well, culturally, we don't deal with mental health well. And I'm kind of like, I don't think any of us deal with mental health very well. So even understanding the basics of mental health are something that I just find is an unequal thing. And especially for those of us who come from a church background, there's a concern for me more and more in the church that we seem to be farther and farther away from the world and the people we need to be helping when we give a a quick spiritual answer of read your Bible or pray or different things, as opposed to looking at practical things that we can do to get better, like acknowledging where we are and looking at moving forward and getting better. And I mean, the inequality piece is massive. When counseling is very expensive, how do we help that? You know, when some people, you know, can go to counseling, pay a lot of money, other people don't have a ride to even get there. So there's layers upon layers of conversation from an equity and equality standpoint.
Yeah.
But I just think we're even missing some of the basics in the church world.
So how do we start bridging that gap? I mean, if thinking about the church, Jesus said, you are the light of the world. You know, let people see your good works. So when it comes to this mental health space, what are some of the good works we can be doing so that we switch from that equality mindset to equity, giving, you know, people the support that they would need?
Yeah, it's a tough one. And I feel like there are some people, some ministries, some organizations that are trying. And I think what would help is that if it was just done maybe just on a bigger scale. I've heard of some churches actually hiring mental health specialists to provide services to their church members for free. I mean, it's free to the church members, but, you know, they're paid through the church, but, you know, that's not happening enough. There are, you know, famous people with influence who are creating these organizations to, you know, reach people of color with mental health needs and things like that. So I feel like there's an effort, and that if that effort can be done more globally and trying to remove that stigma, which is what I think they're trying to do, trying to remove that stigma from mental health, that could be a start.
I have a YouTube video I made, 10 ways to make your church a safe space for people with mental health. And I mean, mental health, mental illness, and those things are different, right? Like we all have mental health. We don't all have mental illness. Like we all have mental health, good or bad. We don't all have mental illness. I do. Like I'm diagnosed with, I had a breakdown 9 years ago. I still 9 years later struggle with anxiety, which is ironic. And that I'm a speaker and author who speaks on this, and I still struggle with this. And in a year, will be a psychotherapist walking through this with people as well. But one of the biggest things I say in that list is it starts from the pulpit, and that pastors need to, like Ava, a bunch of what you said, I agree with. There's organizations, but it's parachurch, right? It's not like we need lead pastors speaking on this from the pulpit down. And that's where you get everybody. Like my favorite thing to do is to speak on a Sunday morning. I think 2 weeks from now, I get to do it again. I call it Care Sunday, where we just address mental health. How do we as Christians walk through this journey? And it's not a quick little meme, you know, Jesus is the answer. That sounds so nice, but what's the question? Like, Jesus is the answer to salvation, but like when someone writes, Jesus is the answer to anxiety, well, someone like me who's had anxiety now for 9 years, have I not tried Jesus enough? Like, what does that say to other people? And then I kind of go down to other things. Like, I find it hard to even get like a musical worship leader to stop saying, everyone rise before we sing. Not just mental health. How about a mom who's been up breastfeeding all night, a woman in postpartum, someone dealing with depression? How about just saying, I'm glad you're here, whether you stand or you sit? Like there's all of these things. And one of the other ones, I'm not gonna give you 10 of them, but I just say churches should actually put a table out, and the table should show all the ways that your church is involved in caring. Now, it might be you do mental health first aid once a year, or you're involved with like Sanctuary Mental Health. I think they're out of BC, or Living Works, you take their courses, but here's a book a month, or here on a map is like, you know, freedom sessions or Celebrate Recovery. And from that, you can do everything from AA to CA, like Cocaine Anonymous. Like, here's how we and our church can serve you when you are struggling. But it's speaking about it and addressing it. Because when all we say is a verse about don't be anxious about anything and we go on, it's hurtful. And it's like, I always say, it's like, remember those whack-a-mole that little mole comes up and you hit it with the thing? That's how a lot of us feel in a church service. And if the church is going to be the hope of the world, we're going to have to start including people with mental health in that. And that's just, it means change, which is hard.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, right? Like when you say even like have I not tried Jesus? It almost, there's like the stigma that makes you feel like a failure. Like maybe I'm not praying hard enough, and that it's just not the case. So all of those tips you talked about would be a great start.
It's funny because there's this tension. Do we believe in Jesus? Yes. Do we believe he heals? Yes. Does he heal everyone? No. That's just the reality. And so what's hard is when someone says after my talk, well, I was healed. And it's like, that's amazing. But that's not the majority of stories.
Yeah.
And if the only answer is, well, you haven't done enough, like it's like a bowl of prayers. The more you pray, at some point you'll be fine. And the truth is, I'm 50. I've lost friends to cancer and aneurysms and car accidents and stuff. And they all prayed, and their families prayed when they were in the hospital.
Yeah.
Like, we do live in a fallen world. I think someone called it the now and the not yet. Like, we're not yet in the place where we're healed and we're doing well.
Yeah. Wow, great points, So the question that's just been going in my mind is, a lot of things are virtual now. So Brett, you talk about having a table out saying what we do, but it's virtual now. So how do we show that care? I mean, there's services when, some church services on video, and some people don't put on their videos. And so you don't know what's happening with them. How can we help? How can each of us, it's not, for me, it's not even just about whether or not the pastor is doing something, but each of us, how do we brighten that corner where we are when it comes to mental health awareness and support?
I think just listening, is an important place to start. A lot of times people are going to talk to people that are close to them and kind of mention things, and you can kind of notice things about your friends or family that are close to you. And you might not know the words to say or the resources, but if you're listening and try to find that together, even virtually, in a virtual, we're in a virtual world now, things are starting to open up a little bit more, but there are things that are available virtually as well. There's virtual therapy, and Zoom and Google. So I think one of a good thing to start with is just listening. Not judging. That goes with listening, but and not judging.
Yeah.
I don't know if either of you have seen the TV show New Amsterdam. I just started watching it recently.
Oh, no, I haven't.
So it's a hospital show, but the main guy, what he always says is, how can I help? And I love that posture. Like, how can I help?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, yes, we're in a weird world, and we're Americans and Canadians and from two parts of Canada. Like, we're all in different places with COVID and things. So some churches are open, some are not. I think we need structure. I'm very pragmatic. And I think, whether it's once a year you have a mental health day where you bring in social workers, therapists, psychologists, and my thing too is we're equipping people to journey this on their own. It's not like just listen at church. Like, it's how do you say, here's information that you can find online. I love the body, mind, and soul analogy. Like, we are physical beings, we are emotional beings, we are spiritual beings. And so let's teach people that it's really important to eat well and sleep better and get, have a good, healthy diet.
Yes.
All that stuff. And counseling is good. And I think too, there's a lot of stigma around counseling, and we need to let people know, like, counseling's okay. Counseling is not just for the broken, even though many of us go when we're broken. Because your issue might be physical, it might be emotional. I don't say it might be spiritual, because it's unbelievably uncommon that the answer to mental health is in faith. It's just like saying the answer to cancer is not in faith, but our faith is the foundation from which we journey this.
Yes.
The Bible says, you will have trouble, but I'll be with you in the trouble. So our faith is the foundation we journey, and we don't know the answers. Some people go to a sleep clinic and that's their issue. Other people, they need vitamin D. And so it's trying to sort through and ask, how do we help as people walk through these different pathways as they look towards hope and healing?
Yeah. Wow. definitely lots that the organizations can do, the churches, and lots that we can do as individuals.
Mhm.
Wow. Well, thank you again for, joining me to discuss this topic that I don't think we'll ever finish discussing. But, just before I wrap this up, what word, what nugget, what advice would you have either to an individual or to an organization when it comes to mental health awareness and support?
I think I would start with that awareness piece, making it seen is important. Brett, you had just awesome ideas about the way churches and organizations can do things. And just, I think making it seen and that awareness piece lets people know that they are not alone and that they're not weird or, that something's wrong with them, per se. But, we're aware and we see it, we see you.
Yes. Thank you.
Good. I would just say to the people who are listening, who like me struggle, I like the line, you can do hard things. Like I went for a walk with my wife today. We usually walk 5K. I got 1 kilometer and my anxiety's high and I'm dizzy. You get discouraged and everything else. And it's like, you can do hard things. When you fall down, get up. And there'll be good days, there'll be bad days. But my favorite analogy is the one of the hole. And we sometimes get in this hole, but like the goal is to climb out of the hole. Don't make the hole your home. And so use people, use videos like this. Go see social workers. And Ava, you're a social worker, if I'm correct. Like, go see social workers, go see counselors, use anyone you can, which kind of, remember the old Home Depot kind of slogan, you can do it, we can help.
We can help.
Don't do this alone. Like family, friends, counselors, teachers, pastors, the list goes on. Use all the people around you and we can get better.
Yes.
And this is not like, these aren't hard things, having a talk a year for a pastor. And this is where we, as leaders and people in the mental health world, can help equip pastors. We can help equip worship leaders. Because a lot of them go, oh, I didn't know that. It's like, that's okay.
Now you do.
Was it Maya Angelou says, when you know better, do better, right?
Yes.
So, you do better.
Yes. Well, thank you. Truly great nuggets. And thanks again for joining me in the Quip Corner.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me in the Quip Corner. Well, the Quip and Convo segment. Great nuggets from Ava and Brett. Yes. Like we said, we need to just keep talking about it and removing the stigma because everybody has mental health. It's just that some people have more issues than others. So what are you doing to take care of your mental health and support those around you? Feel free to drop your comments below. And the video Brett mentioned will also be below this. So please watch it and gain some more nuggets from it. Bye now.